Hi, my name is Cordero Gatto McIntyre, and our topic of discussion for this week's Management in the News is not the most important news in the world because there's other issues that we can focus on, but it's probably the most intriguing and eye-catching news of this past week and in recent years, which is Will Smith slap Chris Rock at the Oscars. So, although this topic is fun and is intriguing, there's actual ethical dilemmas and business problems on the Oscars end that we can dive into. So, the article that I decided to focus on is a CNN article titled Academy Condemns Actions of Will Smith at Oscars. It starts formal review of slapping incident. The chapters that we'll discuss are Chapter 6, which dove into the components of ethical climate, Chapter 2, which dove into company reputation, that was Chapter 3, and Chapter 2, which dove into the role of social media and stakeholder engagement. And then we'll get into Adam Grant's Think Again, Chapter 1, Preachers, Prosecutors, Politicians, and Scientists, followed by Chapter 6, which dove into, or which challenged us to rethink stereotypes. So, before I tell you about the article, the situation was Chris Rock was the host of the Oscars, and he made an insensitive joke about Will Smith's wife, who suffers from alopecia. Will Smith didn't like that. He walked up on stage on live TV at the Oscars, this prominent and prestige event, and slapped Chris Rock in front of everybody, in front of millions. The world was set into a frenzy because this never happens. In the background, the Oscars were faced with a dilemma, and that's what the article talks about. The Oscars ended up putting out a statement saying that they don't condemn what Will Smith did and they'll look further into the situation. So as you see, action wasn't taken at the time when Will Smith actually did what he did. And Will Smith ended up going on to win his award for his performance in King Richard. He gave a heartfelt speech and he received a standing ovation for what he did. In the background, the Oscars staff was split in between two. And in the article, it explains that the situation was tense and both sides were colliding. One side said what he did was ethically correct because of what Chris Rock said and it was insensitive. The other side said, no, this is not our core value. This is not what we represent, and he needs to go. The two sides didn't come to agreement, and Will Smith stayed, won his award, and won the people over with his speech. When we dive into the chapters, Chapter 6 dove into the components of ethical climate. We have unspoken norms and unwritten rules that tell us how to act in certain situations. So at the Oscars, everyone knows that it's a prestige event and you shouldn't act out of character, especially not with violence. So this situation sent everybody in a frenzy because we never seen anything like this. This is like George Bush getting the shoe thrown at him, and it's just something that doesn't happen. It's absurd. So it challenges our ethics and say, is that behavior acceptable because of what happened, or is it not? And then we get into Chapter 3, which dove into company reputation, because as the Oscars, if you allow Will Smith to get away with this, what message does it send? And who does it allow to do the same thing in the future? And then for kids who are looking up to these leaders in the world, what message does that send to them? On the other hand, Will Smith received a standing ovation. And for the Oscars' reputation, there may be a whole bunch of people who turn on them, and which, if we get into Chapter 2, it talks about social media and stakeholder engagement. The Oscars viewing has went down dramatically over 5 years. They were at around 50 or 60 million viewers per event, per Oscar event. And last year they were down to 10 million. But because this happened, they jumped up to 16.6 million because social media was going crazy about what's happening and what's going on. And just like the Oscars, the world was split into two. Is it right or is it wrong? So then when we get into stakeholder engagement, which we're already talking about, does the Oscars say, okay, Will Smith, you're fine for doing what you did. We understand. And you're boosting our ratings, so we're going to invite you back next year? Or do they say, no, we're not accepting this. We'll take the bullet. Our viewings will go down. We'll be boring, as people think. And that's just going to have to be what it is because of our company reputation. We get into Adam Grant's Think Again because everybody's pounding the table stating their case now, both sides. You have preachers who are pounding the table saying, no, this is that. You have prosecutors who are questioning what happened. You have politicians who are saying, no, this is the way you should act, and he didn't act accordingly. And then you have scientists who observe the situation for what it is, for what it is, I should say. There's not always one right or one wrong in a situation. And in this case, there's multiple rights and multiple wrongs. Chris Rock shouldn't have said what he said, and Will Smith shouldn't have converted to violence. So whose side do you pick? I don't believe, and it's not about right or wrong or what I believe, but a scientist would not view right or wrong. They will look at it for what it is and observe the whole situation and come to a consensus. So then we have to rethink our stereotypes about people who are in the limelight and celebrities like Will Smith and leaders who we think sometimes are immortal, because the situation is what it is, because we think celebrities shouldn't act like that. But in reality, we realize that Will Smith is human, and what happened, happened. And some people might agree with it, and some people might have done the same thing, but it forces us to rethink, like, not everybody who we observe from that status has it all together, and not everybody can keep their composure, and sometimes they're just like us. So I'll be interested in what you guys think, and we can talk further.